So come springtime, I've got a little tip, and I'm about to go through the process here now. It's actually a safety tip, but it applies, I think, to EVs maybe a little more so for mechanical reasons. So that tip is...
So, spring maintenance on an EV. Step 1, do nothing. Go inside, have a bag of chips. Except, no, not really. Your EV is quietly sitting in the driveway, thinking to itself, hey, remember that winter we just went through? I need some love. And the best part of this is most EV owners don't think they have to do anything because, well, hey, no oil changes. It's the spring EV reset. Don't skip this. So in this video, we're going to go over a few things that you're going to want to do in the spring to keep your EV in top mechanical condition and ensure that you're safe. And maybe even save your life. So you think your spring maintenance on your EV is pretty much nothing. No spark plugs, no oil changes, nothing. Except that's not really true. So the season changes and it's time to do something about it. If you like the channel and you want to support what I'm doing, I'd really appreciate if you could hit the subscribe button. So right now, we're going to step through a couple of things that every EV owner should do in the spring. Some things that are going to save you some money down the road and maybe even save your life. Well, if you live anywhere where you have a lot of snow over the winter, you're probably familiar with road salt. A proper underbody wash is critical at the end of winter. So now is the time of year to make sure that you spray off the bottom of the car in order to get this excess salt off of all of the metal parts and off of all of the body parts so that it doesn't corrode prematurely. Corrosion's bad for the body and for the suspension and steering components. One of the things that I'm often asked is, should I get undercoating on an EV? You may want to check undercoating. Some undercoating materials are not recommended for high voltage lines or battery terminals. So before you get your EV undercoated, make sure that the material is safe and approved for EV use. One thing a lot of people don't know is that your car, your EV, will have a 12-volt battery in addition to the traction battery that's used to drive the car. The 12-volt battery operates all the internal controls and lights and gauges and switches and the computer that runs the car. One of the things about a new car is that they've all got computers built into them now, and they require a steady 12-volt supply so that everything operates properly. If your voltage gets low, the computer can start throwing errors, not work properly, and you may not even get the car started. So if you have a multimeter, it's a good idea to occasionally, especially in the spring, to check your battery to make sure that it's actually giving out a good solid 12 volts. Anything over 12 volts should be fine. But if it dips below 12, even 11.9, you could find yourself having problems with your car. So if the 12-volt battery fails, you're probably not getting your car started, even if the main driving battery is full. Now the braking system on an EV is unique. It uses regenerative braking much of the time in order to slow the car. So the physical brakes don't get a lot of active use. You might find after a period of little use with your active braking system that it could be a good idea to test the system to make sure that it's working well. This is where a brake test comes in. A brake test is something that they often teach new drivers, and it's a process where you get up to speed and you apply a heavy braking maneuver where the system's anti-lock braking kicks in. Now, one of the reasons that you want new drivers to test this system is because the anti-lock braking system, it's accompanied by a lot of pulsing and sounds and clicking, and that sound may actually startle a driver and startle them to the point that they might think something's wrong, and they might release the brake exactly when they're not supposed to. So doing a brake check actually helps familiarize the driver with the anti-lock braking and characteristics of the car, and applying a heavy braking process to the actual physical brakes themselves to make sure that they're in proper condition. Let's go look at what a brake test looks like.
So come springtime, I've got a little tip, and I'm about to go through the process here now. So that tip is to practice doing an emergency braking maneuver. So we're going to test that today. We're going to go through the process today. And it's pretty simple. You need to find a safe place to do this. Now, I'm choosing a shopping plaza, a mall parking lot, and a corner of or an end of the lot where there isn't anyone around. You're going to make sure that you've got a lot of room with no one around. You're going to get up to about 50 kilometers an hour, and then you're going to fully apply the brake. A good hard press on the brakes themselves. So you'll do this emergency braking procedure, and what will happen is you'll get accustomed to the pressure in the pedal, you'll get accustomed to the sound that the system makes. There'll be some clicking and popping and maybe a little tapping. And you'll also apply that pressure to the system so that it kind of cleans off the rotors. So the next time you really need an emergency braking procedure, you know what it's like, and the system has at least gone through this, and you're not concerned about the actual mechanical application of, because you've tested this, it works. Before you attempt this, clean out the car. You're going to want to make sure that nothing flies forward or could get broken.
I'm probably just like you. I bought an EV last year, I've done a deep dive, and I'm trying to share what I've learned with everyone on YouTube that's in the same position that I am, learning how to use an EV for the first time. So if you like the channel and you like what I'm doing, if you could do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, it's kind of like how you say thank you through YouTube.
Okay, here we go. 50 kilometers an hour. Emergency brake. So here we go, one more time. 50 kilometers an hour. And emergency braking. Now you may have heard there the clicking. There tends to be a clicking coming from, I found in my Equinox, from the rear brakes, and you're going to get a pulsing feel on the pedal, a little bit of a pulsing. If you're in a gas-powered car, I've found that you get more pulsing through the brake lines, but there's a lot of electrical application of brakes in this vehicle, so it seems like there's some electrical clicking that's happening while this emergency anti-lock braking is activated. So you want to make sure there's no one around. You want to get up to 50 kilometers an hour in an isolated area. You want to hit the brakes aggressively. You'll come to a stop pretty quickly. And if you want to do that a couple of times, just to make sure that for the purpose of summer maintenance or spring maintenance, that you've cleaned off the rotors, you know the system works, and you're ready for summer driving.
Tires are an easy one. Tires should either be rotated seasonally or changed over between your summer and your winter tires. So if you're going to rotate your tires, maybe you live in an environment where you don't get a lot of snow in the winter, so you don't have a separate set of winter tires, you should rotate and exchange your front for your back tires in order to make sure that they wear evenly and consistently. If you do have winter tires, it's time to change them. It's the time that you're going to want to look for the wear pattern on the summer tires to make sure that they're not uneven and that the tire hasn't worn down to a minimum level. You'll find on a tire that there's a raised ridge inside of one of the main treads, and that raised ridge will indicate the maximum wear that the tire can sustain. So if the face of the tire has worn down to that raised ridge, then you know that it's time to buy a new set of tires. When you're changing over from winter tires to summer tires, look for the tread depth, look for the sidewall condition, and of course, when you install them, make sure that they're inflated to the proper pressure recommended by your car. You can find the recommended pressure on a sticker that's on the door sill as the driver enters the car. Keep in mind, before you put your new summer tires on, to check your winter tires for uneven tread wear as well. It'd be a shame to have a misalignment on your car that wears your tires unevenly, and put your new tires on only to sustain the same damage by having an uneven alignment. On the subject of tires, it's well known that EVs are heavier and also have a lot more torque. So that might contribute to a little bit of extra wear over and above what you might have on an equivalent ICE vehicle. You probably might have your wear accelerate by maybe about 15%. So if you're accustomed to having a certain service interval for your tires on an ICE vehicle, you might want to shorten that interval a little bit to make sure that your tires are in good condition on your EV. Let's take a look at changing your tires at home in your own driveway.
With spring, time to change the tires. So we've already cleaned the vehicle, made sure that it's got all of the salt removed from the body. And now we're going to switch over from our winter tires to our summer tires. It's a 18-inch tire that's on for the winter, and the original is a 19-inch tire. We're going to jack it up, we're going to change the tires, we're going to check the pressure, and make sure that we're ready to go for the summer season. So for the tools you'll need, I have an electric impact wrench. I also have a small air compressor and a 4-ton jack that will be able to lift this car pretty easily. So we'll make sure that we've got the right lifting points on the car and we're able to lift it up. It is an electric vehicle, so the battery mounting points are under there as well. Shouldn't be too much of a problem to find the proper lift points and jack up the car. So you'll see here the cutouts on the frame. That's where you'll be placing your jack and you're able to lift the car without lifting on the actual battery mounting points. So make sure you've got your jack actually placed on the proper position on the frame in order to lift it safely. And finally, we're going to torque the wheels. Manual says 140 foot-pounds, so we have our torque wrench here. Torque them in a crisscross pattern, starting at the top and then going to the other side, and repeating that across the whole wheel until all of the lugs are torqued to the proper spec. So the final step in the process is to relearn the tire pressure sensors. The order that they came off the car in the winter is not the same order that I put them back on here now. So the sensors are in different spots. So a device like this, you can get that for about $20 either online or at your local automotive store. I'll leave a link in the description for where you might find it on Amazon. Put the car into learning mode, and then you go around and you click the individual tires, pressing the button, putting the sensor by the valve stem. And you do that in the prescribed order according to the manufacturer, and it relearns what wheel is in which position. We're just going to go to the maintenance, and we're going to choose the tire pressure option, and that gives us the readout where we can add the tire pressure to the display or relearn the sensors. We just press the relearn sensors and then follow the instructions in the user manual in order to individually add each of the tires.
In the spring, might be a good time to check your cabin air filter. With all the humid conditions over winter, you might find that the cabin air filter is maybe growing a little smelly and has a few things living in it. You can find a lot of the recommended replacement times and service intervals in your manual. Your manual can be your best friend. Consult it. Something that's also easy to overlook is the condition of your charger, and specifically the cable that goes from your charger to your car. Check the level 2 charging cable for any breaks or abrasions in the shielding. It's a good idea maybe to check the charging port on the car to make sure it's clean and free of debris, and also on the charging handle to make sure that it similarly is clean and there's no bent pins. One thing that you might find in the spring is that flying insects like wasps look at your charger handle and think it's a really great place to put a nest, so be very careful with that. If you pop the hood, there's a few things you'll find that are worth inspecting. The first thing you want to check is your brake fluid. You might find that there's a low indicator on the side of the reservoir, where if the brake fluid is below that level, you need to add a little more. Or you might find there might be a dipstick in the cap of the brake fluid that again will tell you if you're a little low. Now, brake fluid is hygroscopic, so what that means is it actually sucks in moisture and water. So over time, it can actually degrade. So that's why most manufacturers recommend replacing brake fluid about every 5 years and replacing it with new fluid. If you find that you need to add brake fluid, make sure you add a compatible style of brake fluid. There are a couple of kinds of brake fluid, .3, .4, some use mineral oil. You're going to want to make sure that you replace your brake fluid with the proper type. You'll also find that your EV has a cooling system. So it's not the cooling system for an engine, it's a cooling system for the battery. So you're going to want to check the minimum level of fluid in the reservoir for the cooling system. There's a couple of kinds of cooling fluid. You're going to want to make sure that you replace the cooling fluid with a compatible type. Check the reservoir and check the manual for instructions on what kind of cooling fluid you should be using. Some manufacturers recommend a coolant flush at a long interval, like 100,000 miles or 75,000 miles. Again, refer to your manual and find out what your manufacturer recommends. Always make sure that your brake fluid and your cooling fluid are at or above a minimum level. Just a final note on maintenance and fluids. Some manufacturers consider their EVs to be completely maintenance-free and don't require any service such as gear oil changes. Other manufacturers recommend a gear oil change at an interval like 50 or 70 or 100,000 miles. They may also recommend a coolant flush at a similarly long interval like 100,000 miles. Make sure you consult your manual to see what the manufacturer recommendations are. While you're under the hood, it might be a good idea to get familiar with something called the Firemans Loop. The Firemans Loop is an emergency device that an emergency responder would use to cut power to the car. It'll probably be in the form of a loop that's pulled in order to disconnect a circuit, or a cable that's designed to be cut to disconnect the battery from the rest of the vehicle. In the case of an emergency, they can cut this or pull it to make sure that no one gets a shock when they're attending to an accident with an electric vehicle. I'm not encouraging that you cut it or pull it at this time, but it's a good idea maybe to know where it is. So depending on the architecture and the chemistry in your EV's battery, there may be another procedure that you want to go through. Your battery is likely one of two types. It could be a standard lithium-ion battery made of nickel, manganese, and cobalt, or it could be a lithium iron phosphate battery, LFP. Now, the general recommendation with a standard lithium-ion battery is that you use the battery within the 20 to 80% state of charge range, because a standard lithium-ion battery doesn't like to be discharged to zero and doesn't like to be charged and left at 100% or close to. So the standard recommendation for day-to-day use is to keep your battery within that 20 to 80% or maybe 10 to 80% range for longevity. Now, an LFP battery is an entirely different chemistry, and it doesn't suffer from the same issues being drained or charged fully. The problem that an LFP battery does suffer from is that the voltage range within which it operates is actually very narrow, so the computer can actually lose track of the state of charge. So you can lose range in your LFP battery, not because the battery is degrading, but because the circuitry in the computer is kind of losing track of where that LFP battery is in its state of charge range, because that voltage gap is so narrow, and it's the voltage that it's using to actually estimate state of charge. So the recommendation with an LFP battery is to intermittently, perhaps as much as every month, discharge it almost fully, and then give it a full charge back up to 100%. So with an LFP battery, you actually do regularly recharge it to a maximum of 100%. So if this has been helpful, you can check out one of my other videos here, or one of my other videos over here.